Hello, everyone. This is Molly from the Casually Molly podcast, and I just wanted to introduce you to my friends at the Natty Cat. This one is for you cool cats and kittens who can't get enough of wordplay and fur babies. The Natty Cat's natural soy candles feature inventive scent combinations in glass jars with clever kitties on the labels. Hand-purred with locally sourced natural soy wax, the Natty Cat's candles wood wicks create a cozy fireside crackling sound, perfect for curling up on the couch. Remember, for all of your candle and scented oil needs, please visit our friends at the Natty Cat either on Facebook or Instagram.
Have you ever wanted to get your shit together? Scrap it, look through the lens and capture it. But first world problems are getting you down. Disabled, salty, needing a laugh to fix that frown. Well, you can do all those things and so much more. Just grab a seat in the chair or the floor. Sit back, relax, recline. Well, she drops another casual line. You're tuned into Casually Molly with Molly and Bergie.
Welcome to the Casually Molly podcast. I am your host, Molly Ambergy. Remember that you can casually subscribe, review wherever you stream audio and on YouTube. We always have a fun guest every week, and the fun guest I chose this week, and he graciously came on. Give it up for LA-based comedian Jay Light. You can just hear the audience rolling right now.
Man, so loud. Standing ovation already. We just started. Thanks. Oh, I'm so flattered.
He is, like I told him earlier, I was like, I'm really impressed. You moved to a new place, you told me, which is kind of exciting. So so you said you're kind of, working on popcorn ceilings, getting situated. Tell us about, what's going on in LA right now. We're in St. Louis, we're in the pandemic. So some things are kind of open, some things aren't. What's happening on the West Coast? What can you inform us on?
So, well, we are not only doing a pandemic, we're also on fire. So,
jeez, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I moved. So I used to live for pretty much the entire time I've lived in LA, almost 8 years. I lived in like Hollywood, West Hollywood-ish. So center of the city. No, but like there were always, you hear about the fire because the fires always are happening here in LA, but you're never close to them. And then my girlfriend and I just moved to this new neighborhood, Highland Park. And one of the fires that broke out like a week ago or 2 weeks ago is right over the hill from us. So we got here, we're like, this place is great. It's big. It's got a backyard. We'll be able to hang out outside. And then as soon as we moved here, fire bursts out. You can't go outside because the air quality is hazardous to breathe. So we've been inside repainting and remodeling and doing the work from home thing.
Oh my gosh. Well, see, I totally, and like, I don't mean to be sounded sensitive. I totally forgot about the wildfires. And I saw some pictures because I have a couple of friends who were out in LA, and it was like 10:42 in the morning and the sky was just yellow. Like it looked like something, like at first I was like, oh, is this like some kind of filter? And my friend Andy was like, nope, this is just what it's like right now. This is my life. Yeah. I was like, stay inside, stay safe for multiple reasons. I don't even know. Like, it's just just another, I'm sure like a lot of podcasts talk about this, but I'm like, just like another thing to add to 2020. But
I know there's so much, there's been so much going on, but the fires have started to get contained.
Okay.
It's safe to go outside again, at least, and I'm already used to wearing masks as it is. So it's not like that changed a whole lot.
Right.
Well, if any time to have a wildfire outbreak, it's while there's also a pandemic that makes you have to wear masks when you go outside. So it's like, cool, I'm protected anyway. No sweat.
It's a 2-in-1 deal here. You're just like, I'm prepared. I got this. I don't need to be Sandra Bullock out of the Bird Box. This is going to be great.
Right.
Exactly. But how we met. I was like, excuse me, I can't not talk today. So Jay, remind me how you ended up actually in St. Louis, because I am curious, and then I'll explain how we met.
been asked to do a college
That's
in
right.
Joplin. Yeah. Southern Missouri State, I think.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it was, it was on a Wednesday or a Tuesday. So I was like, well, I'm not just going to fly to Missouri and then just fly back home. I've never been in that part of the U.S. I have friends and comics who I know who are in the sort of region around Missouri, and I'm sure I can probably book a little mini tour. So I hit up everybody I knew, seeing about doing shows in that area. And St. Louis, of course, was the first place I went to as soon as I got done with Joplin, because it's in the same state.
Right. Good geography. We got this.
Yes.
But it was great because you and I were on a show together at what's literally, as I was saying earlier, underneath where we record the podcast, called Sophie's Cocktail Lounge. And Chris Denman, who we were talking about too earlier, he hosts a show called The Happiest Happy Hour, where he brings in comedians, both out of town as well local, and then Jack Daniels sponsors it. So Jay and I happened to meet on the same show. So I didn't know who he was. And I really, really thought you were hysterical. And my friends did too, because they came and bought your stickers and they still talk about you.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I have. I loved that show. That was a very fun show. There was a dog. I don't remember if your friends are the ones with the dog.
Yes, so that was the Gateway Guardians Pet Shelter. So for those of you, obviously, who are not here in Missouri, what we did was every time there was a show, they would bring a dog to adopt to kind of show the shelter off. And so it's a very cool show because you've got cool drinks. And then even if you don't drink, there's just all these options at the bar. And then you have the dog and you got the people and everybody's really excited. And then, like I said, my friends Lily and Bill, shout out to them. They were like, oh, we really like that Jay guy. And we bought his stickers. I was like, good. And then you joined me and some other people at the barbecue spot where we also did a show too as well. And I remembered what I liked about us was that you and I both, because I was raised Italian Catholic, you came from a Christian background. So we're both just talking about our religion while people are just eating wings and doing sauces. And there was at one time where I don't even know what I said this for. I was like, give it up for Jesus. And you came right behind and picked up right after me. And I was like, I'm down with this guy. This is going to work out. I'm excited. Which kind of brings me to your upbringing. So, and then we'll get into your album as well. But, you are from Texas, if I'm correct with my research.
Yes.
How did we get from the Texas Christian upbringing to being, a roast battle comic out in LA, which, by the way, you're also really good at too. So you're just good at a lot of things, Jay. How do you do it? How does this all work out?
So I grew up, going to church all the time in Texas, outside of Dallas mostly. And then I went to college out of state in North Carolina. That's where I started comedy also. And I wanted to get away from Texas just because I didn't want to go to college somewhere where my parents could drop in on me unexpected. I could have gone closer. I could have gone somewhere TCU, which is in Fort Worth, or SMU in Dallas, or even UT in Austin. But all those places are a very short drive. I knew my mom's the kind of mom where she's gonna come and barge in on me unexpectedly, unannounced. And I would much rather have to get some confirmation of all right, we're gonna make plans to hang out.
Right.
So,
well, my mom's the same way, so I get it. They probably would get along super well.
Probably would. So North Carolina was the move, and I started doing stand-up out there. When I graduated, I had a film degree, so I was like, all right, well, I should go somewhere where day job-wise I can work in film production or TV production. So it was either LA or New York. I had been to LA and knew that there was more of a place out there for PA jobs, as far as I knew anyway. So I went out there, and then I'd never looked back. I remember that after I graduated, I went back to visit my folks. I worked at Bonnaroo. I drove back home. I worked at a summer camp, and then I drove back home. I turned 22, and then I drove out to LA 3 days after my 22nd birthday.
Oh my God. And then you just never look back. I love that.
Mm-hmm. And I just turned 30 and hit my 8-year anniversary here living in LA, a couple days after that.
Oh my God. No, I'm actually about to be 30 this year too. How does it feel?
The same. There's a little bit more like you feel more pain. Like I think I have not spent a day since I turned 30 not being in pain somewhere in my body. But hey, you just roll with the punches.
Oh, absolutely. Because you remember my boyfriend, Jimmy, we did yoga together the other night because he's like, I've been experiencing pain. I was like, you know what? Me too. So I live in a loft. So what I did was, since you can't really like go to yoga, there's like this like yoga with Adrian YouTube account.
I love yoga with Adrian. Yeah,
exactly. I love that I got so excited. My earphones almost fell off, but I pulled that up and we did like the ab one, which was, she really kicked our asses. We'll just put it that way.
Adrian's intense. I remember I started doing yoga with Adrian a while, even before the pandemic hit, before you couldn't go places. And my girlfriend would she would come, this is before we lived together, and she would see me like doing yoga with Adrian. She's like, who's this Adrian chick that like he's doing the yoga with?
Jimmy said,
but then she did one, and now she has the same crush on Adrian that I did. So
see, exactly.
Totally
it's like a couple, like you literally, that's how I am with Jimmy. Now he's like, okay, I get it. Like I get the attraction. I get why she's got all these subscribers. He was laughing because she her dog Benji is also in it too.
Benji.
Oh yeah. Benji's a staple.
He's so sweet. You don't need a yoga block if you got a yoga dog ready to sit there with you.
See, that's maybe what I need. I just need a Benji. I wish I had time. I love dogs.
we have 2 cats, so whenever we do yoga, that's the thing is the cats are great, but they're the complete opposite of Benji because Benji is so chill in the videos and he'll just like lie there. Our cats freak out and they try and sharpen their claws on the yoga mats, and then anytime we're doing something that's on the ground, they are just climbing all over us and just being a nuisance. We can't do any poses just because they're like, oh, you're also a cat. I'm a cat. I can do that too.
They're like, hey, and
let me show you how it's done.
They're like, because they are cats. Like we went to Chattanooga to visit my best friend and her boyfriend, and they have 2 cats, and like they are probably more agile than I'll ever be at their old age. So if they can do it, we can do it, Jay. It's going to be all right. But I was going to have to say, so you're out in LA. Now, does your girlfriend do comedy as well? Or
no.
Is it okay? Cool. So she just helps out with the ceilings. I love that. That's also cool. Yes.
Yeah. Well, her dad is a carpenter, so she has always been somebody who's very, good with building stuff, and she's got a good eye for design. I'm sitting right in front of this bookshelf.
Yes.
You can't really tell it's a bookshelf just from behind. But she built that, and before she built it into a bookshelf, it was her old bed frame that she took apart and then turned into a bookshelf.
Okay, I'm going to have to talk to her because I got a bed frame that needs to turn into something too. So
and she's a lunatic. She did it all with a handsaw and a screwdriver the first time when she made the bed frame.
That's fantastic. I mean, I took stagecraft in college for my theater major, but who knows? But I'm really excited for you because you really have quite a resume when it comes to things that you've done. What has been, I'll let you kind of explain that because you do have a lot, invested. But what I listened to, and we'll get into your album as well, you do the roast battle thing. Tell us a little bit about that because you're like, I wish that I could be a roaster, and I've never been good at it. I can do stand up, but I know that I'm like nice. I'm like, oh my God, I just burned somebody, and I feel like I'm coming at them. But you're fantastic at it. How did we fall into this?
Sort of by accident. When I first moved to LA, I had this friend of mine, Frank Castillo, who is still one of my best friends, and I was working at this comedy club called Flappers at the time. He and I both worked at the Comedy Store as door guys eventually, but we met before that when I was still working at Flappers. He came by one day and he was like, hey, I've been hanging out at the store. They're doing this new thing on Tuesday nights where it's an open mic, but they do this roast battle thing in the middle of the open mic. and
Nice.
it's really cool, and you should come check it out. And I was like, all right, because I trusted Frank, so I went and started going to that open mic, and Roast Battle was just a segment that they did in the middle of the open mic. And
What?
yeah, this was like 6 months after it had gotten started. So I started hanging out more and eventually got more involved with the show. And then I worked up the courage to do a roast battle for the first time a few months after I started hanging out. And then from there, I just fell in love with it, because the thing I love most about roast battles, it's a joke writer showcase. And the thing that I've always loved about comedy is joke writing. I mean, that's the thing that I have approached stand-up from the ground up, is just like, how can I write the best jokes, and what's the best way I can make this more like intricate and crafted. So being able to write jokes, I never considered myself somebody who would be like a roaster, but it's just joke writing, and you just are taking that mean angle and you're addressing somebody's faults and flaws and the stuff about them that like you only can find out if you get to know somebody and have a respect for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I just love the craft behind Roast Battle. I love the way that you get to know people through doing Roast Battle. And some of my closest friends here to this day in Los Angeles are people in the Roast Battle community, even though we still can't really see each other. It's all these people who I just like, I respect them not only as humans, because I have done deep research on them and know like a lot about their lives, but also because I can tell that they're really strong writers. And to me, writing is the most important aspect of any strong comic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, that's like, everything needs a foundation, right? And like when you're starting out comedy, like that's what everybody always says, especially people I've had on here. Because I always say, what's the best advice that you can give out? And everybody's like, either just do it or keep writing. Like just write. Mm-hmm. Like even if it's just, a sentence, just put something together, just an idea. But yeah, I really admired you about that. And I think it's kind of cool how you broke that down, where it doesn't seem as intimidating now that you've said it. I know that sounds like a little like weird in phrasing, but you're just like, oh, you just got to like break it down and find these different things in it. So that's really cool, Jay. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It really is like, it's not about necessarily like being a mean person by any means. Like I think it's just about being willing to take the deep dives and say the jokes that are the risky jokes.
Sure.
And certainly, as if you listen to the album, I've got a roast battle on there, and I've got some other roast battle jokes as sort of like, I guess, an Easter egg on that track right beforehand, the sketch that introduces the roast battle segment. All of the things that the principal on that sketch says are like real roast battle jokes that I did about people. Mm-hmm. So it's just like, you got to be creative and mean and funny. And I think that if you don't approach it from writing first, then you're just not going to be an effective battler. But that's the cool thing too, is like, I think when I was first starting out as a comedian, I had a little experience as like, a theater kid doing a couple acting things here and there and like speech and debate and stuff. But I always felt like my performance skills were not as strong as my writing. So I focused on the writing for such a long time. Then I sort of had to find the counterbalance and work on my performance. And that's always the growth process for me. It's like, how can I go from the writing? Okay, I get this to here. All right, let's get my performance leveled up to there. Okay, and then now we have to go back and see what I can keep topping and just, it's a constant attempt to improve at least something. But the writing always came first because I just, I liked that, even if I wasn't doing roast battle.
Yeah, well, that's what you are speaking my language, because I was a theater kid too, obviously. Surprise. But I felt the same way. I mean, no one's surprised at all. And for a long time before I started doing stand-up, I would be at home just like writing things and like watching people. And It's just like, I know how you feel because you're like, all right, I'm just going to keep writing and focusing because I didn't feel like my performance value was as strong either. But isn't it kind of interesting how it all comes into balance after a while? Once you start doing so much, you're like, okay, let me see if I can match it here. And then suddenly it all comes together, which it definitely did for you because I listened to your comedy album, Good Guy with a Gun. I was listening to it. I was at work. And I was wondering if you were in theater. And we may have talked about this too the last time I saw you, but what I loved about it was your album incorporated everything. Like there was theatrics, there were sketches. I learned about you before you were even really talking on the album. And then in the middle of the album, there's a roast battle. And then like you're going through it all. So how did we, I guess like what I'm saying is what's your process into kind of getting that structure into the album? Because I thought the storytelling of each bit went so well. Like I felt like I could follow along. I was right there with you. Why don't you just tell us a little bit what you want us to know about the album and probably some of your favorite parts about it?
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, like any first album, the material on there is a culmination of what I've been doing as a stand-up for, at the time I recorded it, the past 9 years. And I when I first had the idea of like, you know what, I'm finally ready to do an album. I was starting to get tired of the material that I had done on the album, but I didn't want it to just like go away. I was like, I really like these jokes enough that I'm going to put them down and put them out into the universe, right? So that way they're not dead forever. There's a record. So I started working out the album. I got accepted to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and
congratulations.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Thank you. It was very fun, and I ran the album material a bunch of times before that in as long of chunks as I could around Los Angeles and then outside of LA in headlining sets. And then Edinburgh Fringe, you're performing your full hour show pretty much every single day for just about 30 days.
Yeah, that's for those of you who aren't aware, the Fringe Festival is like that, where like you're not really sure what time things are going when you get scheduled, but it could be at different times of the day. But what practice to be able to be ready to record your album.
And I had, the craziest thing was when I got accepted, they gave me a time slot that was at like 11:45 p.m. every single night.
Oh, wow.
And I was in a part of town where there wasn't a lot of foot traffic at that time of night. So my shows were very lightly attended. I think I had, on average, maybe 10 people in the audience every single night in this room that held 60. And so when you have a crowd that's that small, it gets very easy to tell what jokes are working and what jokes are not working.
Right.
And I had to do, when I first got there, of course, I had this idea of like, all right, this is what the hour is going to look like. Structurally, these jokes are going to go here. That all changed over the course of me being at Edinburgh Fringe. Just, partly a combination of like, I wound up having jokes that didn't make sense in the flow. And so I just I took those out of the equation. There were some jokes that had references that didn't make sense to an international crowd. So I was like, all right, I'm going to just pull these out. Like, they don't need to know about Texas-related football jokes. I love those jokes. But Brits aren't going to understand those. Let's save those for later. Let's save those for when I'm back stateside. And then I came back to LA and recorded the actual stand-up portion of it like a week after I'd gotten back from being at the festival. So everything was like tight, sharp, honed, ready to go. And then after that, I talked to my producer, this guy, DJ Coach T, who's the DJ for Roast Battle, and he's produced other great comedy albums, Grammy nominated for producing Chris Rock's latest comedy album.
Awesome. Nice.
Yes. And he's a good friend. He's a great producer. And he and I talked like, all right, so there's clearly an arc to the album narratively. And I think that comes from just like, if it's the first album, right, it's all the material, but it's an introduction to me. So you need to know hey, these are the stories that I think are worth telling, and these are the jokes and points of view that I think are worth you hearing and knowing what you're going to get when you hear J-Light comedy. So we were like, all right, let's work on sketches that add to that narrative arc and figure out where we can incorporate some sort of a roast or roast battle, because that's such an important part of your growth as a comic. I feel like it would make sense to have it on there. And it's not really something that's happening with comedy albums at all, really. And so we worked on, over the next couple months after that, wrote the sketches, recorded them with the extra voices you hear on the album, Sean O'Connor, Gene Whitney, Quincy Weekly. We had Nicole Buchanan, who's another good friend, set up the roast battle with her, did the battle. And then after that, Coach mixed it all together and threw in the beats, and he ran some stuff by me and sent me the cuts as they went along. And then earlier this year, it was all packaged together in the final good guy with a gun form.
Yeah, I felt like, and he was completely correct. I loved the idea that you included the roast battle, because it's just, I relate that to you now. So when you put it in, I was like, oh, yay, it's Jay. Like, I was so excited. And then I was even more pumped because I remembered your Four Loko joke from the last time you were here.
Yes.
So when I was like, oh, yes, he kept that in here. And now I'm seeing it everywhere on social media. I'm like going back, like, it definitely takes me back to when I first had a Four Loko, and I'm just like, oh my gosh. But how is, you hit number one. So obviously it's been very well received. But I was about to say, like, how do you feel now that it's completed? Are you thinking about doing another one? Are you taking a break right now? What do we see in the recording when I look on Spotify? What am I going to look up now?
Well, I mean, the stand-up is, now that shows are starting to come back in Los Angeles, I've been doing some stand-up. Okay. And I'm starting to find that the material that I had right before COVID hit isn't really what I feel like doing anymore.
Right.
So some of that stuff may stick around. Some of it may just go into the back burner for when things feel a little bit more normal again, and maybe I'll revisit it. But now I just started doing a new outdoor show here that we're going to be doing every other week starting October 1st. And so basically that's just going to be the lab for until things are back to some more semblance of normalcy and I can go work it out in clubs.
Exactly.
I'll just be doing it outdoor in this parking lot in Burbank for the next several months. But it's a chance for me to figure out and develop stuff again. And, I spent most of this time not performing even on Zoom shows. I was doing one show that I still do, where it's this show that's not even a stand-up show. My buddy Ricardo Feliciano and I do the show for the Pack Theater out here, where we're playing characters trying to sell stuff on eBay and helping give people advice on how to sell stuff on eBay. And then it became this weird Twin Peaksy, David Lynchy, multiple timelines, multiple realities universe. And it's just I never would have considered doing a show like that before COVID hit, but now it's just a chance to be weird. So I'm like, all right, yeah, I still have that, and then maybe we'll see if I can incorporate some of the weirdness that I like from that into stand-up.
Oh my God, I was about to say, where do you guys do this show? Because this sounds something I would totally watch.
Yeah, it's called Power Selling 101. It's
nice.
On the Pack Theater's Twitch channel. So twitch.tv/Pack Theater. And it's every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Pacific. But they keep a replay up, so you can check it out. And we're getting a YouTube channel for it too. So if you search Power Selling on YouTube, you'll be able to find us pretty soon.
Maybe I'll get some tips out of it. I got to learn how to power sell some things. So here we go. This is going to be great.
We're here to help.
We're here. Oh, I love it. Okay, so I've got something to add, which is great. So what I'll ask you too is, back to when you were writing, there was something I was curious about, and it was something that had to do, I'm trying to remember what I read, but it was MasterChef and MasterChef Junior.
Oh, yeah.
So you're probably not surprised, but I'm also a huge fan. I mean, there's probably no surprises, Jay. I'm a huge fan of like MasterChef and MasterChef Junior. So I was like,
I mean, who isn't?
Who isn't? Like, and I like Jimmy laughs at me all the time because I get so into it. I'm like, oh my God, who's going to go home? And then like, like I suddenly think I'm such an expert, right? Like I cannot cook anything that these people can make. And I'm just like, oh, they put a pistachio on that salmon and it just wasn't crusted right. And then suddenly like, I can't do shit, but like, it's fine. But I just thought that was really cool that you were involved in that. Like, how did we get involved with the food? I mean, I feel like you've touched everything. Four Loko, food shows, roast battle. You're like all over the place in a good way. And I love it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got involved. That's the thing is like all of this stuff, as far as the writing jobs and stuff goes, when I moved out to LA, I thought for sure that I was like, all right, something's going to work out, but I'm totally going to be like working in PA gigs and then maybe stand up will pop off. And then that didn't happen because I wound up working at the Comedy Store as a door guy for like 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then that led to me working as a TV writer in a line of work that I didn't even think had writers, which is reality shows, game shows.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. The reality competition umbrella, as I've learned it's called. But I got a job like working on a game show pilot because somebody saw me do a stand-up set at the store and he was like, hey, I think you're really funny. We're putting together a writer's room for this pilot. And then that just kind of like that job led to I was working on BattleBots on the Discovery Channel for a couple seasons. Uh-huh. Another great like show that I never thought that a show like that had writers. But I'm writing. Yeah. But you write jokes about robots, and that's just great because it's just pumping out one-liners and dumb puns, and I love that kind of stuff. MasterChef I got into because a friend of mine from BattleBots worked on MasterChef, and he was like, hey, we're looking for a new writer. Do you want to write on MasterChef? And I was like, yeah, absolutely I do.
Why not? Yeah.
So I did that last year, MasterChef and MasterChef Junior, and I know that the new season of Junior is supposed to be airing sometime soon. I literally was just pulling it up to check. It was supposed to premiere in the fall. It got pushed back a little bit,
right?
But it's going to be coming out soon. The one I wrote, and then we were working on MasterChef at the beginning of the year. It's just a fun gig because you're just writing jokes and hanging out with Gordon Ramsay and other fun chefs.
Oh yeah, trust me. I just admire, like, especially these kids that can like do stuff. I'm just like, oh. What was I doing at 7? I don't even know. And like these kids are like, oh, I made this filet mignon with, I'm like, what? So I read that, I was like, how cool is that, Jay? But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
It was the best. I mean, the best part about those jobs is eating the food that they all cook because you get to. I get to walk out with the producers and the host, so I'm just hanging out, and you have to taste all the food to see who's going to wind up going on and who's going home. And I've gotten to eat some of the best, like just the best meals I've ever had. And we have this amazing culinary team who makes all of the recipes beforehand just to test if it can be done in that certain amount of time that we give these home cooks. Mm-hmm. I remember one of my favorite days on MasterChef. We had an episode of last season where the home chefs walked out. There's this huge tray of cakes, like not even like a table of I think like 20 or 25 cakes, and they each had to pick a cake and had to remake that cake from scratch. Gosh. But of course, the culinary team, because they have to make all of these cakes for the stage to make them look to have the chefs like pick one that they're going to be using. They had to test that they could make all of those cakes themselves in the allotted time that we gave these chefs. So they had 2 sets of cakes, and they were like, well, we can't use one of these sets of cakes. We're going to give it all away to the crew. So they wheeled, there's this cake day where they were wheeling in carts full of cake into the craft services room, and everyone's just eating. Like, we had, red velvet cake, right? We had some fancy French, like gâteau opera, which I'd never even heard of, but it's just like, it's so good. I gained probably 10 pounds that day, but I felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, as you should feel good. It's all okay. I mean, like, that's like a once in a lifetime opportunity to have a cake you can't pronounce. Trust me, I used to work at a bakery a long time ago. So even though it's a different scenario, I do miss, like, even though you gain 10, but you're like, this is the best 10 pounds I'm going to have for the rest of my life.
Right.
So, like,
this is, and to think it's all from just like telling jokes about getting caught jerking off by my mom and sent to sex ed at my church. Getting to eat all these cakes came out of that. It's very weird.
Yes. Isn't it amazing? And that's like the thing that I love about life sometimes, how like there's so many random things that happen into it, but then somehow they all come like correlating back together. And you're like, oh, and this is how I got good guy with the gun. Like, it's the craziest thing. But what I'll ask you too is what has been, with your album coming out, what has been one of the most rewarding things other than just having the album out itself? Like, have you kind of been, like, do you feel like you want more? Do you feel like you've accomplished what you wanted to? Or was there somebody that you met that you got some kind of validation from? Like, what do you feel out of the process of making one has been just rewarding to you?
I think the biggest thing that I have appreciated out of the album being released is just the reception it's gotten. Like, I've had a lot of people hit me up after the album came out and they're like, this is really great. And it's really, it really showcases all the things that you can do as a comic. Getting to release it through All Things Comedy, which is, obviously Bill Burr and Al Madrigal are two comics who I really respect. And I'm glad that they were the ones who saw this. The whole team over at ATC, Mike Bertolina and crew, they were all like, yeah, this is great. And we want to put it out under our name and say 800 Pound Gorilla. And it's just cool to see that, like, this wild dream that I had 10 years ago is finally like, oh, this is a real thing. Like, having an album it's a calling card. Like,
yes.
The proof is in the pudding, to tie it back to cooking references.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
But it exists. Like, I can't, it's stuff that I can't take back. No one can take it away from me. I have this thing out and it's like, oh, okay. Whew, now I can breathe. Now I can, like, figure out what comes next, which I got plenty of time to figure out because who knows when the pandemic's going to end.
Oh my God. Isn't that the best part? You're like, now I have all this time to be creative, like, you're like, I don't know what's going to happen, but like, that's why I wanted to reach out to you, just because, like I said, even when I met you, I thought that I could tell by the way, and I'm not just saying this because you came on my podcast. And again, like I said, I always appreciate people who want to catch up. And obviously it's always good to see you. But when you were delivering your set, I just like, I don't know. I just had like a good feeling about you. I was like this guy's got some serious work ethic. I can respect it. So, like, in a funny way, I wasn't even surprised you had an album. Like, when it said like J Light comedy album or something, I was like, of course he's got one. Like, he's a great comic. He's gonna have an album. Like, I can't like see you and an album not like being in the same sentence. So I am so excited for you. And like I said, I loved it. And like, I'm an Italian Catholic. I came from a religious background. So if anybody's like me and they're like, oh, I need somebody to relate to, this is the album you have to listen to. I have Spotify Premium, so I streamed it on there in my earphones when I was like on the treadmill, and I was laughing. Like, sometimes I don't even need music anymore. Like, if I've got a good comedy album or a good comedy podcast or something. So thanks for getting me through my run.
Of course, happy to help. I hope that there's somebody out there like me, like you, listening while they're tearing down popcorn ceilings in their apartment right now.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I hope. They're casually tearing down their buildings. They're just seeing what's going to happen next. And that one thing you should do.
Breathing in asbestos dust.
Oh my God. I feel like I do that all the time now. Like, I'm just like, because, my boyfriend, he flips houses and stuff. So he's flipping the house he's in right now. And there was a point, well, I'll make you feel better. So you know how you're like ripping out ceilings? Yeah. There was a while where, and I think your girlfriend will definitely appreciate this, he had to take out the ceiling so he could fix the I say this like I'm pointing up to the ceiling, but he had to fix the electrics that were in it. And he had to walk on the ceiling, but he couldn't be on the ceiling, obviously, because you could fall through. So he had a balance on these two beams. So one day I came in and I was like, hey, Jim. And all I heard was like this hello from the ceiling, but it's enclosed. So I didn't know. I'm like, where are you? And he's like, oh, I'm in the ceiling. And I started laughing. And then I look up and there's this gaping hole and there's just my boyfriend. And he's like, do the lights work? And I was like, they do, but are you okay? And it's just, oh my God. It was terrifying. It was like, it looked like a little crawl space. I was like, man, this is where we are at the pandemic now. We're in crawl spaces. We're putting up electricity. We're over in LA taking down popcorn ceilings and surviving wildfires. Like I don't. Oh man, it's a wild time for sure. So best of luck on the ceilings.
Thanks. Same to you and same to Jimmy.
Exactly. I don't do much. Like if he needs a tool, I'm like, oh here. I'm like you, where he's trying to teach me, and I'm just like, babe, I don't know what we're doing, but I'm gonna learn. So. But what I'll ask you at the end here is for people who are interested, because I'm sure they will. Let a lot of people, obviously, I interview a lot of comedians. I know you talked about writing and whatnot, but is there any advice that you would give to comedians who are pursuing this? Because most of the time, like, I ask people who are kind of in like, they've been out, you've been in LA out for 8 years. You've had some experience. What's kind of something that you would pass on to other comedians who are kind of pursuing the same passion that you are?
What I would say to the newer comics out there, to the people who are figuring it out, is to go on stage as much as you can, perform as much as you can, but don't let it become your life to the point where you don't have something to like look back on outside of doing stand-up, because there's certainly a point where like the grind is really important. Like I think that the grind of developing material and trying it out and honing it down is really, really important. But you also have to like give yourself a chance to breathe, give yourself some space. It's not the end of the world if you can't get up 4 times a day, if you're not having like new jokes to write about or experiencing new things to write about. So make sure that you give yourself time to like live a life a little bit. And the pandemic is a great time to do that, because it's a perfect time to like not think about doing comedy, because why would you right now anyway?
Right.
Take a chance. Tear down your ceiling.
Yeah,
right?
Tear down your ceiling. Make your old bed frame into something really cool, okay? Like what are we doing? But I it's so interesting you bring that up, Jay, because I am so guilty of that. And I think it just happens when you're in that hustle, right? And I hate to use that word because everybody's like, grind, hustle. But it just happens when you start entering comedy and whatnot. And then you're totally right. Like sometimes you're like, you got to breathe for a second though. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Because the thing about being a comic is you're just trying to convince an audience to believe you for a second. Like you're pulling a magic trick on them. You just want them to believe you and laugh and then clap. And everyone's gonna be able to do that in their own way. That's the whole point of performance, is you figure out your own way to do it. But what makes you unique as a comic is like having your own point of view and talking about the stuff that happens to you, and the way you see the world and your point of view. So if you don't experience the world in a way that you can talk about it, then you're not going to be as good of a comic as you can be.
I agree.
Oh, and actually, sorry, one other quick thing.
Go for it. Tell me. Yes.
This is something that I only recently started thinking about, and the album helped figure some of this out too, is if you think about what you're doing on stage as like an extension of you. This is something that really helped me out, is when I started thinking about, I stopped thinking about like what's on stage is like, that's the truest, purest form of me, right? Like, I don't think that that's the way I approach being on stage, is like, I'm telling it like it is, right? Like, I think that what I'm doing on stage is basically just like, hey, this is what I think, and I'm going to explain it in a funny way, and I'm going to say it with jokes, but I'm not like trying to speak truth to power or anything necessarily, right? Like, I just want to be funny. But I also know that like the jokes that I have involve maybe some dark or some touchy subjects. So I had to figure out a way to be perceived on stage in a way that would enhance the performance. Like look at this shirt that I'm wearing right now, right? Like, I'm wearing this tie-dye heart shirt. I love clothes like this because wearing stuff like this, or dressing up in like a button-down shirt or something like that, wearing clothes like that help trick the audience into believing that they can that I'm going to be the sweet, nice, good guy. And then I'm going to wallop them with some jokes about some maybe darker, touchier subjects that I'm going to make you laugh at, because I've got the skill to do that. But I want you to have the element of surprise added. So when I started thinking about like, okay, if I'm doing a total performance, right? Like, if I'm conceiving of myself in a certain way, then how do I look the part? And then how can the jokes like act as a device to enhance that? So it's something that I wish I'd thought about earlier, but like, if you're trying to figure out like how to write the jokes, consider maybe how can you craft what you're doing on stage performance wise, and even just down to like the kind of clothes you wear. How can that enhance the jokes that you're writing? Because they can work in tandem, and they totally should.
Yes. Oh my. So that is so crazy that you brought this up, because I was just talking about the clothes thing last night. So, oh my God, it's like you're on, I like, not to be like the universe aligned us, but it totally did, because
It totally did.
It did.
Oh, man.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the ceilings, the alignment, I can't handle it. But no, I was
Yoga
doing
with Adrian, it's all there.
A yoga with Adrian, it is literally all there. I mean, the religion. Listen, I was doing an open mic, right? And I know this is going to sound really fucking stupid, but here we go. So I did these 2 guest sets, and like, welcome to comedy. I was doing guest sets over the weekend, and I was like, boom, I did really great on this, boom. And then I did the open mic, and I was like, and it's an open mic, so you know how it is. Like, you're working shit out anyway. Right. Sometimes you're going to be good, sometimes you're not. And like, I know this is going to sound weird, but I had this green jumpsuit on, and I was like, no, this is like not like, it's an extension of yourself. And I was like, this is not relating to like who I am. Like, I mean, I'm a little dressed up now because I came from my day job, but I like literally and I also wanted to look a little bit more professional for this podcast. But when I'm telling jokes, I feel the most comfortable in like my jeans, like my leather jacket. I feel like I'm more relatable with people. And it's like the strangest thing, because people are like, oh wow, like she's super nice. But then like, it's just like what you said. I'm not like, I don't know. I'm trying to explain this without like rambling, but long story short, like, I just feel like I just relate better to people, because people are like, oh, like she leads a life. Like, she understands real life. Like, she's not just like this, like, this like cookie cutter face that came from this like Italian Catholic family. Like, she's experienced some shit. And I just felt like in my jumpsuit, and I know people are like, that's so stupid, but I was like, this isn't an extension of me. Like, I need to like be me and who I am. And so it's really interesting that you brought that up. But I mean, hey, I love the tie-dye shirt, so it works. There you go.
I mean, this is the one. But that's the thing too. It's like, I have this jacket that I love wearing when it's cold out. It's this cool. It's like a leather jacket that's got padded, so it's nice, it's warm, and it's super cool. Like, my girlfriend's dad made it. He didn't make the jacket, but he took this jacket. It's like this vintage leather jacket, and he painted a still from an old Donald Duck cartoon on the back.
What?
And it's got like Donald Duck with these crazy, like he just gotten hit in the head or something, so the eyes are all spirally, and it's a really cool jacket, and I love wearing it because it feels like me, right? Where it's a little bit like it's got like a goofiness to it, but I learned because I performed wearing it, and then I had other people talk to me after I performed wearing it. It's too cool to be worn on stage by me.
Oh,
and because of the jokes I talk about.
Yes.
Like, nobody wants to hear the jokes that come out of my mouth with me wearing a jacket that looks like something that Dennis Hopper might wear in Easy Rider. Doesn't work.
Yes. Oh my God. See, I had a joke about Plan B, and here I am in like this nice jumpsuit. And I was like, I don't look like anybody that's taken Plan B right now. I look like I sell insurance. Like, it was not, like, it just didn't, I don't know. Like, not that I'm saying that everybody that wears a leather jacket or something is, taking Plan B, but you know what I mean? Like, it just, I don't know, I felt like
if you're wearing a leather jacket, you're more likely to have taken Plan B. That's just how it goes.
Apparently,
right?
Especially if you're me, so it's okay. But I get it. Like, I've had that too, where some people, like when I first started doing comedy, I would always wear like higher, I don't even know. Like I would just wear these different outfits. And it's the same thing that happened where somebody came up to me and was like, I'm not trying to be critical. Like, you look beautiful, but it's just not matching up the same way. And I was like, oh. And then once I kind of like just was myself rather than feeling like I had to dress up for people, just amazing when you're yourself in comedy, how it gets received. And
that's the thing. It's like, it's not even necessarily about like being yourself to the degree that like if you're telling jokes and you are being a character, like a caricature of yourself in a way, then lean into that too.
Yes.
Right? Like look at Natasha Leggero or Anthony Jeselnik. Like,
oh, I love him.
Natasha carefully curates what she wears and how she acts on stage to give off a certain vibe. Jeselnik, same thing.
Yes.
You know, both of them off stage, very different than they are on stage. But the look that they cultivate helps the performance that they give. That's the most important thing.
Yes.
That you don't even really like think about until way, way after you've gotten started and had some time under your belt. Yeah. And it's also the kind of thing that like it's easy to forget because unless somebody tells you about it, you're likely not going to think about it.
Yes. No, until somebody comes up to you, you're like, wait, what? I don't know. I don't understand. Like it's it's so true. I don't know. I was just talking about this last night and I just like can't believe that you're talking about it too. I know. I'm like, people are gonna watch this video and be like, she is just in shock. And I'm like, I really am. Like, I don't know. But we are. I was like, I'm in the Midwest, you're on the West Coast, but like somehow we made it work and I like it. But let me ask you, first of all, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, if you ever come when things maybe go back to normal, we have some kind of, union of seeing people. If you ever come to Missouri, let me know. Otherwise, I'm planning on coming to LA sometime in the future and I'll hit you up. But why don't you tell us, since we're not in LA with you right now, where we can follow your comedy career, just you in general, your album, just tell us all.
Of course.
All things J-Light.
You can see me mostly at the Ace Hardware in South Pasadena right now. I'm going to be making a lot of trips there. You can find me at Diet J on Twitter and Instagram. And if you are in LA, jlightcomedy.com for show dates for live shows, and I'm going to be posting my any Twitch shows or live stream shows that I do there too, since I guess now that's a thing that's going to be part of comedy for who knows how long. But yeah, and then jlightcomedy.com, Diet J, and go check out the album. It's available wherever you get your music. Good Guy with a Gun. And listen to my podcast, Blockbusting, if you want to hear people talk about movies they hate and why they hate them.
Yes. Oh, my God. Because I remember you were telling me about your podcast, and I've been like meaning to listen to it. So that's going to be on my agenda. After this is done, I'm going to casually listen to Blockbusting because that sounds like up my alley. And I'm going to watch you try to sell me some eBay stuff. But,
of course.
Of course. And please, I know Jay's with me right now, technically, but his album is really great. Please listen to it. You're going to laugh your ass off. You're going to be impressed by roast battles. There's sketches, especially if you're, you got a theater background like me, you're going to love it. And then just remember, casually subscribe to the podcast. I interview different comedians, musicians, entertainers every week, and you can do that on all streaming services, YouTube, like us, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, you name it. But Jay, what are you going to do now that we're done with our episode? We always say that. What are you going to casually do?
I'm probably going to go casually finish eating a sub sandwich that I have in my fridge.
Nice. Yes.
Sounds pretty good.
I got to get a sandwich too. I'm hungry. It's like dinner time over here. It's like 7:12. What time is it in California right now?
5:12.
Okay, cool. So we're around the same, a couple of hour difference, but
We're close.
We're close enough. But I really appreciate it. Stay safe, and I will talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Thanks, Molly.
Bye.